right, there we go.
Thank you, Jay. It's really good to have you on Harrowings podcast today.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on, but it wasn't letting me in. I sent you a bunch of emails. I don't know if you were getting them.
I got at least one, the one with the screenshot. I sent you one, and that is the way that Substack
Right.
tends to work.
I think I sent myself 4 emails instead of sending them to you, and then I resent them to you
Wonderful.
with all my problems. So anyway,
Well, it's a small price to pay. If anybody has tuned in, we've got at least one other guest, Lost Vibes 100, who is one of my board of directors, and I have no idea who this person is. That's one of the mysteries of Substack, too. I
uh
know who people are, but
huh.
if they pay me a subscription, I'm happy. But I wanted to introduce you by using something that I got from you fairly recently. Actually, your daughter Ricky as well has been involved.
hmm
And
Awesome.
Michael Franti's comments about you, I think, is a good introduction towards the end of the forward. He says,
hmm
Jay's hard work, the eye of an artist, the heart and soul of an empath, the longevity of a historian, the wisdom of the ages, the kindness of an old friend, all so that someone who was there can relive those feelings, or the person who wasn't there can feel what it was like, can feel connected to the feelings and say, wow, I get that, or at least, damn, I wish I was there. So I loved that paragraph from Michael Franti
hmm
and Retro Blakesberg. This volume 1 of the Film Archives, which is in this lovely box set aside here.
Awesome.
Beautiful. And thank you so much for the print I just found tucked inside of it that I hadn't even noticed.
Love it.
You're wonderfully generous. And I just thought we'd open it up with talking about your viewpoint on yourself as a cultural anthropologist, I think is the way you've termed it in the past.
Visual anthropologist, anthropology defined as the study of humankind, right? And so I just happen to focus on a subculture that revolves around rock and roll. um that tribe, and even more micro than that is probably deadheads and hippies. And so those people, the modern day hippie tribe essentially started 60 years ago, mid 1960s, 60, 62, 3, 4, the earliest hippies really.
Right.
The
Coming out of the
transition,
beach.
yeah, transition from the beats to the hippies at that point. So, there were tribes discovered 50 years ago in the Amazon that were only 50 years old that were studied as, at anthropology. So why can't we study the hippies? It's a good tribe, right? Um, and uh, and so, I, without really realizing it, going back to when I was a teenager,
Right.
in the 1970s, I started taking photographs of my friends who were essentially people living a somewhat alternative lifestyle in 1970. We had not conformed to um, uh, 2.3 children, 2-car garage, live in the suburbs. We didn't know what the fuck we wanted to do with our life, but we knew we wanted to smoke weed, take acid. It was the 70s, so probably do cocaine and go see rock and roll and go see the Grateful Dead, and even if we were lucky, actually have sex with people that you wanted to have sex with. But that wasn't always so easy because we were kind of stupid and nerdy, and no girls would even make out with us, let alone have sex with us. So
That's right.
um,
I mean,
um,
I was right there with you, just about a year behind in Williamsburg, Virginia, experiencing exactly the same things. As a young
yeah.
fifer at the Fife and Drum Corps, the older guys would teach the younger ones, and they taught us everything, including how to smoke pot. So
Oh yeah, everything. They showed it all to us. So, and that's when I started taking pictures and sort of I mean, I wish I took thousands more back then because, looking at those pictures now, I'm just like, wow, like this is our life. You forget what it was like pre-internet and pre-digital and pre-social media, and what it was like to live in an analog existence, so to speak, and figure things out by reading books or the encyclopedia or paying attention in school or listening to FM radio or reading Rolling Stone or Relics. That's where we found our information. And of course, your older brothers and sisters and, your friends, older brothers and sisters who were turning you on to music and culture and art and drugs and all the things.
All the things and all of the culture that was available then. I was just at the, Warner Theater on, see, November 1st, catching Jorma Kaukonen. Was your first published photograph, right? I don't have
Mhm.
a really clean copy, but right there in retro Blakesberg is that photograph.
Yeah. So,
Form and
Uh,
Relic.
what yeah, when I was 16 years old, we went and saw Yorma. It was actually supposed to be a Hot Tuna concert. And then, I don't know what really happened, but, the grapevine back in the day said that Yorma and Jack got in some big fight and they broke up Hot Tuna and then they rescheduled the date and Yorma came back as just Yorma. And then, I was 16 years old in May of '78, and, I was a junior in high school and didn't even have a driver's license, and after the concert, the guy that I went with, whose name was Laz, he said, "Let's go get Yorma's autograph," and he comes out the side door. So we went over there, and Yorma engaged for a split second with us and jumped in his limousine, and, we just jumped in our car and followed that limousine into New York City, and he stopped at a deli midtown, and I said, "Hey, Yorma, how about a smile?" And he gave me that look, and I got that photo and sent it to a letter to the editor of Relics magazine, and got published. At 16 years old. So that was my first almost famous moment.
Yeah, that's great. How long did it take before it took off for you and you started getting published regularly?
Well, a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
the first time I got published and paid money was about a year and a half later, in September of 1979. I was 17, and I took a couple photos at a Dead show in Rochester, New York, that ended up in a review of a Dead show,
Mhm.
in an alternative weekly newspaper called the Aquarian Weekly. It was a free New Jersey, music entertainment based newspaper, and they published two of my photos, and I got paid $7.50 for each photo, $15 total. But concert tickets were $7 at the time, so that they got me into two more shows basically, and I was 17 and I was published in print.
Yeah.
After that, it was very sporadic here and there. I'd send some stuff to Relics, they'd publish it. Wasn't really working as an active photojournalist. I really just became a full-on deadhead and graduated high school, pretended to be in college, and followed the Grateful Dead around the country, and met a guy who was a acid dealing guru out of San Francisco, and became part of his underground LSD distribution network,
Wow.
and started selling massive quantities of LSD to my friends from high school in New Jersey, by the sheets, fully psychedelicized northern New Jersey in '80 and on tour. And then, they started watching that guy in San Francisco that was sending me all that blotter, and he got arrested, and got arrested, and I went to prison, and he went to prison, and
Yeah.
I got out of prison, I went to college, and then when I moved to the Bay Area in the mid '80s is when I really started to figure out how to. I needed to figure out how to make a living as a
Right.
photographer because I didn't know what else to do. And that book that you were holding up, Retro Blakesberg, that I like to call that my visual autobiography.
Yeah.
So that's the limited edition version that you have there in the clamshell box. The regular edition is, and we just tomorrow, I think we're starting a big sale for the holidays on all my books, including that one there.
Oh, great.
15, 20, $25 off on these coffee table books, trying to get them out the door for the holidays to people. But yeah, that's my visual autobiography, and I talk about those things in that book, in the essays that I wrote at the beginning of each decade, and so,
Right.
kind of get an idea of like, what I was doing and how I evolved as a artist, photographer, documentarian, visual anthropologist. All the things. Yeah, Bob Weir and Brent Midland. I took that in May of 1979,
Right here in
and
DC. Yeah.
yeah, and that was I was still a senior in high school when I took that, and Bob Weir and Brent Midland from the Grateful Dead showed up at a No Nukes rally in Washington
Right.
D.C. and I found a press pass on the ground and walked backstage and on stage, and there they were, and that was my first almost famous Grateful Dead moment.
And that's
Uh,
another great one where you're right up on the stage.
Yeah, Jane Fonda. So I have a photo of her from when I took it in the audience, and you can see all the photographers down front in front of the stage. New York Times, Washington Post, Time, Newsweek, all the everybody was there. It was a big news item, and I was like, I want to be one of those photographers. I want to be up there in front of the stage. And I looked on the ground and I found a press pass, and I just walked up on stage. So
That's beautiful. I love that. And,
yeah,
what a great opportunity. The press
yeah.
pass is there.
I mean,
Great shot of Joni Mitchell.
yep,
I don't
same
know.
thing. Jackson Brown. Those are all from the No Nukes rally in
Mhm.
May 6th, 79. So I was 17 years old when I took those.
Yeah. When you were talking about, documenting the tribe as well, you're doing it probably without a lot of consciousness about that aspect then, right? Or
Well,
were you thinking
certainly back
about it?
then, I mean, we didn't think of it as a tribe. We just thought of it as a bunch of like-minded individuals who wanted to, get psychedelic, drop acid, take
Mhm.
psychedelic substances and listen to groovy music and not conform. We all read On the Road, we all read the electric Kool-Aid acid tests, and we wanted to
Right.
live that model of a lifestyle. We didn't want to, fall into the again to say, what I said before, the 2.3 children, two-car garage, live in the suburbs, and follow the prescription that, the generation before us was told, which was
Right.
birth, school, work, taxes, death, right? And that's the last thing that any of us wanted to do. We didn't want to do birth, school, work, death. We wanted to do birth, some school, grand adventures, live a fabulous life, maybe some work, maybe if you're lucky, have a career that you love, travel the world, fall in love, maybe make a family, maybe not, travel some more, see the Grateful Dead, you know, pay some taxes maybe, and then do all these incredible things, or in my case, document humanity, photograph the people,
Yep.
see thousands of live concert experiences, and then hopefully not die anytime soon, but keep on going and having fun and experiencing the beauty of humanity and our planet. I just got back from Mexico City
Oh, yeah.
last week. I did a quick trip down there for a long weekend, and it was fabulous. I'd never been there before, and there's just
Really?
so much to see on this planet and so much to do and
Right.
so many people to do it with and so little time. And so,
Right.
why would anybody do the birth, school, work, death formula? When I speak in high schools and colleges, about my career and what to do, that's one of the slides, birth, school, work, death. And I say, this is what you do not want your life to be, right? You really don't.
Yeah. Although that is where a lot of us have gone and still go, because society tends to pressure us in that direction.
Sure, it's
Um,
horrible cultural conditioning. It's
right.
terrible.
I'm trying to break that down a little bit and open it up. I escaped wage slavery not too long back, and
Right.
have been since then doing this harrowings thing. And when you were talking earlier, one of the things I like to talk about is those pivotal moments, like when you find the press pass, and
Uh-huh.
then there was the moment in which you went to jail. I wasn't going to
Uh-huh.
bring that up unless you did, but I figured you might. That's a really harrowing experience. Can you talk a little bit about what that felt like when you were about to go in, and then what happened next?
Well, sure. Listen, you when you're 18 years old, 19 years old,
Yeah.
20 years old, and you're getting sentenced to 5 years in state prison, you're a little freaked out to say the least. I mean, I was very fortunate that I only spent 8 months in state prison, but you're very, very freaked out. You don't know what to expect. Like I'm a, short, white, suburban kid that is, moving into a population of, people that didn't don't have didn't have a lot of opportunities in life, because of their circumstances of where they were born, who their families were, whether they're, or black or Latino or white or whatever, a lot of poverty in this country, obviously. And so, there's a lot of unknowns. And, it was a culture that I was not super familiar with because it's not something I mean, I was living on dead tour with a bunch of white suburban kids who, you know, came from, you know, white suburban families and followed the Grateful Dead. And so, you have to figure out how to adapt and I did. And so, you know, prison was a fascinating experience. I don't recommend it to anybody, but I was very, very fortunate. I was young, I was resilient. I am definitely a half glass full kind of person, and so I made the best of it.
Yep.
I took a lot of notes and wrote a lot of journal entries and met
Wow.
some interesting people and became friends with interesting people that I would normally have never become friends with,
Exactly.
and, you know, going into jail, I had learned how to juggle, and so my nickname in prison was the juggler. I was the juggler. We had a black market of smuggling illicit goods that people wanted and needed, and so I was
Mhm.
part of that underground network of mostly stealing and smuggling white sugar from the government because everybody was addicted. Like I was a drug offense. I was possession of a controlled dangerous substance with intent to distribute. So I was forced to go into drug rehab program, to in order
Sure.
to become straight and in order to go straight. That's what I needed to do is go straight. And so, like we had to sit around. If you've ever been to rehab, you know what I'm talking about. If you've never been to rehab, you probably saw it on TV, and you're sitting around in a circle and people are saying, "Oh my God, I was addicted to heroin and I was addicted to Quaaludes and cocaine and speedballs and I stole my parents, heirloom jewelry that was gifted down to them from the Tsar of Russia and it was worth millions and I sold it for $2,000 worth of dope and then they get to me and I'm like, "Hi, my name is Jay. I'm addicted to LSD." It was kind of I mean, if you've ever seen the television show Orange is the New Black, it was a dark comedy like that, but for men. But again, I was young and I wanted to get the fuck out and get on with my life. And so after about 6 months, it was sort of like, okay, the joke is over. I need to get the fuck out of here. And I was lucky. I got out in just under 9 months. But we did everything that we could do to fuck with the system they added 180 beds to the prison illegally, and we wrote a letter to the editor of the local newspaper and outed them. And the guy I wrote the letter with, he decided he wanted to sign it, but I wasn't going to sign it. He got thrown into solitary confinement for I think a month. For ratting out the state for building illegal beds, and we wanted to express our freedom of religion, so we insisted me and the one other Jew in the prison that we get to celebrate Passover. And so we wrote a letter to the Rabbinical College of America, which just happened to be a short drive away. And they brought us matzah and gefilte fish, and I hate gefilte fish, but I gave it to sorry, I'm just making sure my microphone's okay on this thing.
No,
I
good.
I gave it to the brothers, and they were like, "Gefilte fish? Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever! How do I become Jewish?" I was a vegetarian in jail, so I grew alfalfa sprouts and gave them to everybody, and put them on their peanut butter, and put them on their tuna fish and their gefilte fish, and I was the juggler, and I was a fucking anomaly. I was a weirdo. I was a freak. They didn't know what to think of me or do with me. Um, but I walked out of that prison, eight not just shy of 8 months later, and I didn't get raped physically, mentally, or spiritually, and walked out pretty well adjusted, and went on with my life, and became Jay Blakesberg, the photographer.
And you maintain some contact with some of the people from that time, right?
So, not really
Or
anymore.
the culture?
You asked if I was still in contact with people I was in jail with. Is that what you
Well,
said?
you remained in contact with some of them afterwards, right? Not anymore.
Well, yeah.
It's so long ago.
There was this
Got
one guy. There was one guy named Joe,
Uh-huh.
and we stayed in touch. Saw each other once or twice after we both got out. and then disappeared from each other for a couple decades. And then social media, he found me and stayed in touch. He retired, moved to Florida. Kind of
Oh,
lost touch
nice.
with him. A
Yeah.
couple of years ago, I got a phone call. I was sitting at my computer. It was 6 o'clock at night. I was getting ready to go to see a concert at the Fillmore in San Francisco. My phone rang, and I said hello, and the person said, "Hi, is this Jay?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, what did he say? Um, I I I have a correction for you. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You wrote something that was incorrect, and I have a correction for you." And so I go, "Who is this?" And he said, "It's Wayne Weiniger." And Wayne was the guy, one of the guys that was the Jewish guy that I was in jail with.
All right.
And what happened was is that uh I had a museum exhibit in San Francisco a couple years ago at the Contemporary Jewish Museum, and they
Mhm.
asked me to write a blog about Passover, I believe it was. And so I told the story about being in jail with Passover, and I talked about this guy Wayne Weiniger, and he somehow he has a daughter that's in her mid-20s, and
Yeah.
he had never told his daughter about him being in prison, and he finally told her, and so she started doing some googling, and
Uh-huh.
his name popped up on a Google search in my article about Passover at the Contemporary Jewish Museum, and he was calling me to fact correct me about uh I can't remember how long he was in jail for or something. Something that I said in the article
Okay.
that he didn't agree with, basically.
Okay.
And but it was pretty funny. And then you know, I we were and then I said, you know, I didn't remember. I said, "What were you in jail for?" I can't remember. What were you in jail for? And he said, I was robbing all the parking meters in Camden, New Jersey, I think it was, outside of
Uh-oh.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He made a master key for all the parking meters and stole, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars of quarters, nickels,
Okay.
and dimes in parking meters, and then got caught, and I think he was in jail for 3 years. But he's also the guy that went to solitary confinement for outing the prison for the bed. So
On the bed.
anyway,
Yeah.
that's the last person I was in touch with, and that was a few years ago.
Oh, he's really shaking up society, outing the
Yeah,
government and getting the parking meter wow, that's
yeah,
impressive. 3 years seems like a harsh sentence to me too.
yeah.
One thing you mentioned in passing there was addiction to white sugar. That really
Right,
resonated with me very much because I think we really are. My wife went through this program where she treated white sugar and flour of all sorts as crack cocaine, basically. They just don't do any of those things within food addicts and recovery, it's called. And then, she had a stroke that paralyzed her on the left side of her body when she was 42, just shortly after we were married. And she can't exercise. So it's all down to sugar and flour. It's all down to calories, really. She dropped
right,
80 pounds in 8 months. And that's
right.
it, which is
Yeah.
quite impressive.
Well,
I think we
when you
all need to be aware of that. That's all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you put 20 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee in the morning, you're going to get a rush and a buzz, right? So, you know, a lot of the prisoners that were in jail, they were in jail for burglary, breaking and entering, you know, whatever, you know, other nonviolent crimes, and they were doing a lot of those crimes because they were drug addicts, but they didn't because they weren't convicted. And for drug offenses, they were not required to go through a rehab or a drug program, and so
Right.
they were jonesing. And you know, I mean, when you ate 25 tablespoons or teaspoons or whatever of white sugar 3 times a day, you got this incredible rush that maybe, you know, fulfilled what, you know, the drugs they were doing. And so you know, I worked in the storeroom, and we had 50-pound bags of sugar, and we would cut those bags open like they were giant kilos of cocaine, and fill plastic, you know, sandwich bags and whatnot that we had, lunch,
Wow.
you know, just regular plastic bags with white sugar, and roll them up and smuggle them back to the dorms and pass them out to people. And you know, the main commodity for trade in prison was cigarettes, obviously, but I don't smoke, and so I would have people get me postage stamps to mail letters to friends, or cans of orange juice from the canteen, or you know, things like that were more utilitarian for my purposes. But you know, it was all nickel and dime stuff. But basically, we were flooding the prison with white sugar that we were smuggling out of the storeroom.
Wow. And it's a really important thing, I think, for all of us to be aware of. I know I suffer from carrying around too much weight these days. After my wife's stroke, I didn't exercise as much. One thing led to another. When I was living in Denmark, it was wonderful. I rode my bike everywhere. Food quality was much higher.
Mhm.
So I lived over there for a couple of years. Yeah, I noticed that you mentioned that you were down in Mexico City recently. That was a fun trip, vacation.
Yeah, just went on vacation. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And what do you currently got in the flow these days? I'm just kind of curious as to where you're going now.
Let's see. Well, it's sort of the end of the year. I've got some big projects on tap for early next year. Um, well, so I just released a couple of new books. I released a Grateful Dead book. When Dead and Company played the Sphere in 2024, they asked me to create a photography exhibition that I did. That was a it was a free exhibition at the Dead Forever Experience, and we had about 60,000 people go through it. And I was approached by a big art gallery, and they said they wanted to make a catalog of that exhibit. So we turned that into a big Grateful Dead book, and it's only available from my website and the
Got this one by any chance?
no,
Or
not
a
that
newer
one.
one?
That's a newer one. You don't have it yet, Hal. Got to
No,
go on
I haven't
Rockout
yet. I've
Books.
got most of your
Um,
books.
yeah, the new one's called An American Beauty. Grateful Dead,
Okay.
1965, 2025. I mean, 1995. Sorry, 1965, 1995. 30 years of the Grateful Dead with Jerry Garcia. It's got about 150 photos that have never been published before. And
Gotta get
so,
on it.
this gallery owner said, "Hey, I really want to make a catalog of that exhibit. It's so good. I'm a deadhead." And
Yeah.
I sort of wrote him off because it's very expensive to make a book. But he stepped up, and we did a big exhibit at his gallery in LA. So yeah, if you go to rockoutbooks.com, you can get that book. But so
Okay.
that book just came out recently, and then my daughter, me and my daughter curated that, and my daughter curates these little inexpensive $27 little magazine zines,
Yeah.
DIY zines. And so
I've
we
got the
just put
first
out,
volume.
right. So what do you have? The Deadhead one?
Yeah.
So we have
What's the
four now. We have punk rock, we have the Grateful Dead in Egypt, and we have Neil Young. So the Neil
right?
Young in Egypt one just came out. So the first two, the one you have, Deadheads and Punk, those are retro Blakesberg, meaning they're only my photographs. And the Egypt one and the Neil Young one are retro photo archive. If you don't follow that on Instagram, just go check out Retro Photo Archive. That is a collection of photography archives that my daughter and I manage for about 25 different photographers. So the Neil Young zine has, I think, 6 or 7 different photographers. And the Egypt zine is one photographer, the main guy that shot Egypt. We manage that Egypt archive. And so those are retro photo archives. And right after the new year, we're going to start on 2 new ones. We're going to do one on um, the Tibet Freedom Concert, which will be celebrating its 30th anniversary in 2026. And the other one I think we're going to do is an Allman Brothers zine. So then I think those will be our next 2 in the series. And so yeah, just you can see them all on Rockout Books.
Well, I was really glad to see you also did a wonderful forward for David Gance's book,
Yep.
Improvised Lives,
Yeah,
as well.
I helped David produce that book. So yeah, so
Right.
we help other people produce coffee table books. So I've got a project on tap for early next year of a famous fashion model from the 40s, 50s, 60s that worked with all the big famous fashion photographers. She worked with Avedon and Penn, and
Right.
her family. She's deceased. She would have been 100 years old, and her family contacted us, and we're going to help make a book of that.
What was her name?
And her name was Georgia Hamilton,
Okay.
and she was a very famous high-end fashion model for all the biggest name photographers in our country.
That's great.
And of course, we're still, Retro Photo Archive is a big priority. There was a Grateful Dead Blues for Allah 50th anniversary release that just came out from Rhino. All the photos on that CD and vinyl release all came from Retro Photo Archive. They're not my photos, but they're all photos we manage. Right, that's it right there.
Oops,
Yeah,
upside
so
down.
yep, so all the photos in there came from Retro Photo Archive. And
Awesome.
which is that one. Except for that photo on the back there is the only one that's not ours. That's a Peter Simon photo. But everything else in the booklet is ours. And then there's two other Grateful Dead releases coming out, which I don't know if I'm at liberty to talk about. Yeah, that's Golden Gate Park, taken by Bruce Polanski. He's a Portland, Oregon photographer, and we manage his archive for him. And that was taken in 1975. All the photos were taken in 75 when they were recording Blues for Allah. 19,
Bobby and Phil.
yeah, that was taken by a guy named Greg Garr, who's my neighbor here in San Francisco. He's 76 years old. 1975, the Grateful Dead only played 4 concerts. 3 of them were listed as Jerry Garcia and Friends, but they were the whole Grateful Dead. And those 2 photos you just showed us were those exact shows. That was a Jerry Garcia and Friends concert, but it was the whole Grateful Dead. So we got a lot of stuff. We just took on a new archive of a bunch of 1970s Allman Brothers photos, which is epic. So we're focusing a lot on retro photo archive. I currently, if you're in Los Angeles between now and February, my museum exhibit is at the Grammy Museum in Los Angeles, so that's still up and running. I think it closes mid-February. If you happen to be in LA on January 13th, I'm going to do an event at the Grammy Museum with the great Henry Diltz, another amazing photographer from the 60s. We're doing a slideshow conversation on January 13th in LA at the Grammy Museum. I just got engaged by a cannabis brand, and excuse me, and we're building out a Grateful Dead historic photography exhibit that'll be on display in some of their retail stores, and we're going to do a big event in March in St. Louis with them.
Okay.
Um, we've got things going on. Things are happening and and
Hard
and
work.
getting falling into place for early next year. So, we definitely have a handful of things um that are on tap, and but it's the end of the year. So right now we're just focusing on getting Christmas gifts out, holiday gifts, Hanukkah gifts out to the people from our website. My daughter, who you mentioned earlier, who curates my books and works on all these zines with me and curates the exhibits, the museum exhibits. She just curated the special GD60 issue that Relics magazine just announced this last week.
Oh
So
wow.
she, so she so she was the creative director and curator of that issue. That comes out, I think, in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. I think it's at the printer now. But she curated that, so she's got that going on. So yeah, we got our hands on a lot of Grateful Dead projects and other things. There's a couple things that I'm not prepared or allowed to talk about just yet that are Grateful Dead related, not with the band, but things that surround the history of the Grateful Dead. So we have some projects in the works that are going to hopefully come to fruition in 2026 with that. Does not include live concert stuff, just if people are wondering how cryptic I'm being. Um, um, and
Yeah, you don't want to set off any l- rumors.
Yeah, no rumors. I have no information. I have nothing, no, nothing about anything. We got projects, we got stuff going on. So that's what's coming up.
Yeah, some other people have joined now as we've been talking, so I should back up a little bit and say who you are and what we're doing. Jay Blakesberg, visual anthropologist, photographer extraordinaire. I mean, I've got so many works of yours around. I think you can see right behind me, I've got the Buckle Up Kids Phil Lesh photo up
Yep.
on the shelf.
Oh yeah.
I
Yep.
love
Love
that
it.
one.
What
And
are people that are on, or can they ask questions?
they can, like I was telling you earlier, we can get them in the chat. And what I'm seeing is if I can get the thing to behave itself here and I can see them again. Just a second.
Well, if anybody has any
Scroll it on
questions,
down. Yeah.
write them in the chat, and we'll answer questions. We can hang for a little bit longer for sure.
I'm
Um,
scrolling a little bit to make sure. And by the way, I do want to be respectful of your time. Thanks for mentioning that.
no, it's Sunday.
Do you
We're
have a
all
hard
good.
stop?
What's that?
Yeah, good. Well, I know you went like 2 hours, splitting it into 2 segments for the interview you did out on KSKQ. I don't know if you recall that with
I
Helen
don't.
Adams. You don't remember that one? That was good though.
Oh yeah,
It was
yeah, oh yeah,
very
yeah. No,
kind.
oh yeah, right. You and me did that. Right, right, right. Yes, of
Well,
course.
I didn't really have much of a role aside from telling Holly that she ought to call you because you'd be a great guest.
Right. No, no, I remember.
Mhm.
I just didn't remember the call letters. Of
Right.
course, I remember Holly. So,
It
um,
I facilitated that, and I did one for her with Reed Mathis too, who I've never met,
he's
but
a
wonderful
wonderful human,
sport. Yeah.
wonderful human being, amazing musician. Um,
Soon to come along with, a concert for George kinda thing at the Hamilton Live in March.
oh, right. And so yeah,
That's in March.
my friend Michael Gaiman is the producer of that show. It's with
Okay.
Steve Kimmock, right?
Steve Kimmick's gonna be in it, Reed, I think Scott Guberman might be playing it. I don't I'm sorry, I don't really know because
Jack
I'm
is Jackie
managing
is
myself.
Jackie Green doing that? No.
Yeah, Jackie Green, yes, yes, he's gonna be
Right. Yeah. So they're gonna have some projections of George Harrison on the screen while they're playing, and some of those came from Retro Photo Archive from us. Yeah.
fantastic.
So yeah, I really want to see that show. I don't know where. I don't know if it's playing in the Bay Area or if they scheduled it yet,
We'll fly out
but
to
yeah,
DC, Jay, come on.
I should.
I'd love to see you again here. We
There's
met one time in person at the Birchmere, and I wanna
right.
tell people that when I met Jay at the Birchmere, you were kind enough to sign Fare Thee Well for me, which I happen to have here. I think you just had a few left at the time.
There are none left anymore. They are
None
gone
left
completely.
anymore, and, Jay's so kind. I mean, he wrote this little lyric as well there on the signature page.
One of my
I
favorite
was one
Bob
of the
Weir.
last people in line, but what I wanted to tell people was you sold out the Birchmere on a slideshow.
Right.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, I think that I'm thinking about starting this coming spring of 2026. I'm thinking about getting back out there and doing some slideshows again. I think maybe in March we might do a little 3-night run in California and do Santa Barbara. There's a winery northeast of Santa Barbara that wants me to do it, and then
Mhm.
in between LA and San Diego at the Ecology Center where they're doing a bunch of groovy Grateful Dead nights there. So I think I'm gonna get out on the road and do a little 3-night run of slideshows on the West Coast, and then try and start scheduling some stuff on the East Coast again, and get back out there and share the stories. Um,
I first really got aware of you when I was watching you work lock-in festivals, and I've got all
uh-huh,
lock-in books that were done as well, which have a lot of your photography in them, and some other folks, but I think you're the primary photographer of those.
correct. Yeah,
And
and we produce those books as well. Yeah.
it was just amazing to watch you work. And I was thinking at the last one I saw somebody else going, like, over your shoulder with a camera. I don't know
Uh-huh.
what was going on. I was thinking, "I wonder if they're doing a documentary on Jay and his work," and I mentioned that to you at the Birchmere, and you sort of brushed that off real quick. But I still think that would be a really
Well,
interesting documentary.
there is a documentary that came out, and it could have been the guy.
Okay.
And they shot it with an iPhone. They shot the whole documentary, and it's about shooting live concert photography.
Oh,
And
wow.
they interviewed a dozen or so photographers. I was just one of them, and they interviewed me at Locken. I think they also came out to California and interviewed me here as well.
Right.
And Chester Simpson, do you know Chester? He's a DC
Don't
photographer.
don't know
They
offhand, but I'll look him up.
Yeah, he's in the doc. Documentaries are tough because you got to put music in them, and music is expensive to use from documentary film for in documentary films. So, we'll see. We'll see if there's ever a doc about crazy people like me.
Yeah, Chester's, site is rockandrollphotos.com. That's rock hyphen in hyphen roll photos, all one string at the
Yeah, he was an ex-Bay Area guy, but from DC, originally moved back there long, long time ago.
right.
Had some serious drug problems and cleaned up and got his life together. But
Yeah,
Chester's a good he's a good
good
dude. Chester's a good dude.
good Warhol picture there. I used to work for the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh briefly,
Mm,
years ago before I moved over to Denmark, we were mentioning earlier. But what I do around here is something I call the passing show. I go out with the iPhone, and put it pointed outwards and narrate whatever I'm seeing.
uh-huh.
And
Great.
I keep that.
What did you do in Denmark when you lived there?
I worked for a small web software company. There was the dot bomb phase, 2000 to 2002 is when I was there. And we traveled around a lot to try to get research done on our competitors across Europe. And I traveled
Mhm.
over to Chicago to try to secure a partner over here who's doing a lot of writing to make them sound American. We were a
Right.
company of 13 when I joined. I was number
Uh-huh.
13. Um,
Uh-huh.
and it was a fun place to live. A small web software company, like I said, a bunch of guys who didn't realize that there were other people making web content management systems at the
Right.
time. Like
You know,
Orion.
it's interesting that you called it the dot bomb, and you know that's exactly what was happening in 2002 to 2000 to 2002.
Yep.
So you know, I live here in the Bay Area, so I was at ground zero for dot com 1.0,
Yes.
and you know I saw the entire thing explode and implode, and essentially it started to implode in 2000, and the nail in the coffin of the dot com was literally 9/11 2001.
Yes, it
And
was.
and but you know like I watched people become multimillionaires overnight and then lose everything, you know, the next day. You know, alternative minimum taxes and paper stock that was, you know, valued in millions of dollars and people borrowing against it from the banks, and then it was worth nothing and they couldn't pay those loans back, and literally you know destroyed, you know, our economy and our community. You know, the dot coms came in and bought up and took over all the warehouse space, and so all the bohemian subculture of San Francisco disappeared. You know, the writers, the photographers, the dancers, the artists, the painters, the nonprofits. You know, overnight their rent went from $2,000 a month to $10,000 a month because the dot coms were coming in, and during that time period, you know, I was shooting a lot of rock and roll, but I was also being hired by ad agencies and also computer magazines. So all the big computer magazines of the day, the late 90s, Red Herring and Fortune and Forbes and Business 2.0 and all these different magazines I was shooting for.
Hmm.
And so I was sort of like, you know, watching this whole thing in real time. And I mean, I did a shoot for Rolling Stone magazine of a brand new company called Yahoo. They had 15 employees. 15 employees. I can
That's
show
what
you
you
a
said.
photo. I can show you a photograph of their main server room. It had three computers, three desktop PCs in it. That was it. You know, and the founders, Philo and Yang, you know, basically were, you know, living on futons in this office down in Menlo Park, you know, and so that was the beginning of Yahoo. And then that was in 95. In 96, I got hired by Fortune magazine to photograph the founders of another new web search company called Google. And they had 75 employees at the time.
Right.
And the woman, you know, the woman who I had to deal with in marketing PR, you know, she was like, "Hey, do you know anybody looking for marketing jobs? You know, we're hiring." And I said, "Oh, my sister-in-law is looking for a job," right? She at the time she lived next door to me. Um, and uh, and I went home and I knocked on Lisa's door and I said, "Hey, I was just at this brand new company called Google down the peninsula and they're looking to hire marketing people." And she was a B2B marketer and that's was her life and her career. And she said to me, she goes, "God, it sounds cool, but I really want a job in the city. I really don't want to commute down the peninsula." Now, to put that in perspective, if she had taken that job, she would have been under employee number 100 at Google and
Right.
would be worth probably somewhere in the net range of $100 million today. But you know, you just never know. Like, who knew what the fuck Google was? I mean, literally, there was 75 employees. You know, there was nobody there.
Oh, I remember
Um,
when I first got Googled. I was so shocked. I was dating this girl in Pittsburgh who was directing neuropsychiatry at the University of Pittsburgh's Medical Center. She Googled me. I had no idea what that meant.
yeah. Well, we all do now, you know. Anyway, so you know, so I was here during all of. I remember getting an assignment from some magazine, and I
Yep.
went to this little loft space to photograph this guy. And I'm like, "Well, what does your company do?" He goes, "Well, we're called Coffee.com." I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" He goes, "We're going to sell coffee beans on the internet." And that was such a foreign thing to me. Like, I didn't even know what that meant. Like, sell coffee beans on the internet. I mean, this is in the days of dial-up, you know, when you know,
Right.
your modem, you know,
Yeah.
made that noise, right? And so, you know, and of course, all these businesses went out of business. And if you're old enough to remember television commercials for like pets.com and petopia.com, you know, pets.com had the little sock dog, right? You know, they were like, you know, Petopia was on the corner where my studio was, and pets.com was 2 blocks away, you know, and the internet was blowing up, and millions of dollars being thrown around on paper. And it was all false economy and fake money, and the whole thing crumbled. And so
Yes.
by like I said, 9/11, 2001. So when you say between 2000 and 2002, you were in the dot bomb. It's very, very accurate, and
Thank you.
it took it took 8 years for it to slowly come back in San Francisco, the economy.
Yeah.
And then in 2008, we had the mortgage crisis and everything exploded again.
That's why I'm
Right.
here. In 2010, we bought this condo here in DC for a song.
Right.
'Cause that
Not even a dance, just a song, no
Yeah.
dance. Right, and so, yeah, I mean, that's what happened again. So 2008, it crashed and there was no work, and I started doing video production because there was so little photography work to be done because there was just, nothing going on. I mean, leading up to
Oh, well,
to
your
9
video
o
production, perfect segue. I've got
Yeah,
something there. I was
yeah,
just watching something you produced. Can you
the
guess what it
J
was?
the Jason Crosby video?
Actually, it's a hint is behind me. It was the 2006 bonus DVD of the Phil and Friends at the Warfield.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
produced that.
So, well, I
But
directed it. I directed Phil Lesh and Friends Live at the Warfields. The first thing I ever directed. It was like classic Grateful Dead moment. They're like, "Hey, have you ever directed any video?" No. We want to make a live DVD. Will you direct it? Sure. Like literally, that's what happened, and I became a director and directed Phil Lesh and Friends Live at the Warfield. But so
you did
so I
produce
had a
Jason Crosby too, you mentioned. I didn't wanna gloss that over.
Yeah, yeah. I just posted like a video that I found that I produced about 7 or 8 years ago on my computer, and I just posted it on Facebook. But yesterday, and then I saw Jason randomly last night. Wasn't even expecting to see him, but ran into him at Sweetwater in Mill Valley. But what I was going to say is that the economy was so bad that I there was so little photography work. I needed to work. I had kids. I had, bills to pay. So I started doing video production. And over the next 3, 4, 5 years, I focused more on that than photography. And then I eased right back into photography. Once the sort of the digital camera technology got to a point where I really, really liked it. The sensors got bigger and the quality got better. Then I pretty much went all in back to photography and still did video, but nowadays I pretty much do zero video, which is fine by me. I mean, if somebody called me and asked me to produce something, I would do it, but just really not, I did it, if you Google stuff on YouTube or search for stuff on YouTube with my name, you'll come up with some things and whatnot.
Oh, there's so much. I mean,
Yeah.
I just flicked open to look for this concert photography documentary featuring you. And I don't think I found that, but I found a lot of other things, including that Morristown, exhibit you did, I think in Morris College, was it? Uh,
Um, the Mars Museum, you mean, or
Morris Museum, there it is, retro Blakesberg remix. Yeah, you had that on view for a
yeah,
while.
yeah.
And, you had a reception up there. I almost drove up for it.
Yeah,
I
no,
couldn't
that was
find
amazing.
myself doing it.
That was my first museum exhibit and curated by my daughter. Um, anybody throw any questions in yet? Nobody
I don't
cares
see
about
any yet.
what's going
A
on.
voice of wonders has joined. A lot of people have joined. A lot of people apparently listening to us, and we're putting out. Oh, we got one. My cousin Jeff Knighton. I googled you looking for this feed, Hal, before I found it. Okay, good.
Not a
Good. Jeff
question. Is
found
it
us.
good
Jeff and
job,
Mary.
Jeff?
So you see that? You can scroll through them too and see if
Oh
there's
yeah.
any.
All right, that's okay.
Let's encourage people to try to ask those
Right? Come
questions.
on, you
Try
got
to
you got to
stump
want to
them.
know. I'm an open book. I'm an open book. Come on, you gotta have
Well, let me
something you're curious about.
We've had a couple little random encounters. I first saw your dark what is it called again? The Dark and the Light?
Between the dark and light. Yep.
Between the Dark and Light, slideshow exhibit in Scranton at the
Uh
Peach.
huh. Uh
In
huh.
2019, I think it was, you were on stage photographing Ghostlight right before giving your slideshow, if I remember right. Do you remember that show
Oh yeah.
at all?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Definitely.
that was brilliant. I've taken a few guitar lessons from Raina, but she got really busy with the happy fits.
Uh huh.
She
Yeah. Raina's great. I love her.
Yeah, she is really wonderful to have done those. We did them over Zoom, you know. I'm trying to learn to play this, guitar I've got over here with Yorma and Jack's autograph on it that I got through a Camp Win a Rainbow,
Uh
uh,
huh.
auction.
Uh huh.
wearing my Rex Foundation hat as well.
And right, and there's yeah, so the Rex Foundation benefits coming up in a couple weeks with Grateful Shred here at the Fillmore in San Francisco,
Well, great.
and I'll be at that. And the Winter Rainbow benefit 50th anniversary benefit concert for Winter Rainbow was October 1st, I think it was. So
That's about
month
right.
and about 2 months ago.
A neighbor of
Um,
mine here in DC splits his time with Oakland and here, and he was there. Check
that
out
was yeah,
Girl.
it was a great show. I got a birthday coming up. I'm going to be
Yeah,
64 in a week.
I saw it. I was gonna
December
say some
1st.
about it. I didn't want to tell people how old you were,
That's
but
okay. I'm
okay.
going to be 64. You guys, will
And
you still love me when I'm 64?
beat me to the punch. I was
Yeah,
aiming for that line too, but yeah, December 1st. Fantastic. That makes you a Sagittarius, right?
I am a Sag. That's why I'm such a fucking weirdo.
Sag
Um,
rising, but I'm an
yeah.
Aquarius. February
So,
4th.
but yeah. Somebody said, "What's San Francisco like today?" It's a little gray, but it's calm and nice. It's not rainy or anything. Um, uh,
Pam Wade says it's cold. Is
I
Pam
haven't been.
Wade out there in San Francisco?
She
Who
must
are
be.
you? Where are you? And how are you?
Right. But yeah, I've only I mean it's a little bit sunny out. Yeah, that's kind of breaking through, but I mean yesterday was beautiful, so I'm sure it's a little chilly, but I don't know about cold. Maybe it's in the 50s. I don't
In
know.
the
What's
50s for some people is cold.
yeah.
My wife
Yeah.
and so I'm not a
Yeah.
fan of the cold. I kind of like
Maybe maybe low 60s, but yeah.
about the same in
Anyway,
DC.
um yeah, so that's what's going on in the world here.
I think
You
that's
know,
really interesting. The Camp Winter Rainbow thing, 50 years old, is a pretty impressive thing, as is the hog farm. And you had Lisa Law on your photos with stories, Jay. That was
I,
what
I
really broke it for me,
Yeah. Photos with Stories was a little talk show that I did during the pandemic
right?
and I talked about talk with photographers basically about their experience photographing whatever they've been photographing for years and years. So and then during that time I mostly did photographers, but I did two concert promoters.
Yeah.
And one of them was a guy named Bob Barsotti. He was a longtime Bill Graham Presents guy, started working for Bill when he was in high school. And he just had the most fascinating stories about, really the birth of the modern day rock and roll live concert experience because he was with Bill starting in the early 70s. I mean, really the modern day concert experience really starts in the late 60s. I mean, I don't even consider the Beatles at Shea Stadium or things like that the modern day concert industry because they weren't really concerts. They were just people screaming and you couldn't hear anything. But I mean, like, Bill Graham actually going out of his way to build sound systems so people could actually hear the music and, experiments in public assembly, as I think he used to call it. So that was a good one. But yeah, that was a fun little program that, I don't do it anymore. It was definitely a pandemic thing. Had to do something during the pandemic, right? Had to keep
But they're
busy.
still out there on YouTube, folks. You can still go out there and watch them. I was rewatching the Lisa Law interview, but the Barbara Sodi one was really good. And I listened to it. I remember where I was. I was driving back from Williamsburg along 301,
Uh-huh.
somewhere in like Waldorf, Maryland, as I
Uh-huh.
was listening to you holding forth with Bob Barsotti and just learning so much about the
Yeah.
backstory of how the business is.
So if you look that up on YouTube, Bob Barsotti, Barsotti. So if you want to look that up, I'm sure if you looked up photos and what did I call that? Pictures and stories,
That's photos with stories. I think that's
photos
what
and
it was. I could
stories.
be
Yeah.
wrong.
Photos and stories with your host, Jay Blakesberg.
Yeah, it was
Um,
done through Relics channel, I think is where I find it
yeah,
generally,
that
but it was also fans.live, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Something like
that's where it originally was all happening, fans live and whatnot. So yeah, there was it was that was fun. Um yeah, so let's see what happens in 2026. Here we go. If you're
almost there.
looking, I will give myself a little plug here again. If you're looking for the perfect holiday gift, just go to my website, rockoutbooks.com. We have all sorts of bundles and sales and we've discounted pricing on all of our books. And we're sending out a big email blast and starting a big, like, marketing advertising push starting tomorrow because next week is Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all those things. So there's my
Big
Dead and
rainbow
Company
full of
book.
sound.
Yeah, yeah, the Dead and Co book. That book is a great book, and we discounted that book by $20 for the holiday sale. So now's the time. Buy books, support small business. That book is not quite sold out, but there's literally 20 copies left, and they're
Get it while you can.
slightly dinged, but that's all that's left, and that book is never going to get reproduced. So,
It was a
that's a
beautiful book too.
yeah, Jerry
Real good
Garcia,
tribute.
Secret Space of
I
Dreams.
had a fellow on who's a flute maker over in Switzerland named Skip Healy. He was one time listed as the world's greatest fifer. He also makes the fifes for the old guard. But he actually was sitting on Pier 39 in San Francisco? Does that sound
Yeah.
right? And he's had some guy come up behind him and he was sitting there smoking a joint. And some guy came up behind him and said, "Hey, man, that smells really good." And it was Jerry Garcia. So he sat there and shared a joint with Jerry. And, that was a great story. And his story was about how they got to talking about banjo playing. And
Okay.
then Jerry turned to him and said, I don't think I've ever told anybody that before.
Well,
So he was the
that
carrier of the message.
that was
Support.
probably a long time ago.
It was probably sometime in the '80s, though, he said. I'm not sure. We really couldn't nail down which part of the '80s. I actually got on the bus in '84 and got right back off. I just hitchhiked down to Charlotte for the Charlotte show in '84 and back to
Uh-huh.
Richmond for the next night, and that was enough.
Yeah,
I didn't even catch the Warlock show, although I do have it on CD back here.
yeah. When
Anyway,
at Hampton, yeah.
let's plug you a little more. You've been doing work on this since '79, really, right? Isn't that when you picked up the camera?
1978, when I was a teenager.
Okay.
And did my first assignment for Rolling Stone magazine in 1987. 11/11/87. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma a few weeks ago because Bono and the Edge accepted the Woody Guthrie Prize from the Woody Guthrie Center, and
Wow.
I don't hang out with Bono and the Edge, but because I was the guy with the camera that was asked to photograph them, I was in a room with them while they were signing some guitars that they were going to auction off to raise some money for the Woody Guthrie Center. And I said, "Hey, are you okay? Can I tell you guys a quick little story?" Because this was like the third week in October, and I said, "In 2 weeks, on 11/11, November 11th, is going to be the anniversary of when you did the free concert in downtown San Francisco. That's in the movie Rattle and Hum. You guys filmed that on 11/11/87 in San Francisco." Now that was my and so I went on to tell them a story about how that was my very first assignment for Rolling Stone magazine. Um, Went on to do another 300 or so assignments over the next 30 years. And I said, "But, I'm in the movie." I said to Bono, I go, "I'm in the movie. There's a shot from behind you guys. And if you look between your legs, I'm the guy with the Nikon and the mullet." I go, "It was the 80s. I had a mullet." I go, "You had a mullet, so I had a mullet." And he looks at me, he goes, "Yeah, man, I got to apologize for that. I'm really sorry. I convinced you to make a mullet, So he apologized for my bad
For the
hairstyle
mullet.
choice for the mullet back in '87. But so that was my first Rolling Stone magazine assignment, 11/11/87, and and then but yeah, got to tell Bono and at the Edge that story a couple weeks ago, which was kind of fun. So
That is really fun. I ran into Adam Clayton in Copenhagen actually when they were running that Vertigo tour, I think. No, not Vertigo, it was probably the Elevation tour. But that notwithstanding, speaking of Bono, he was plugged in with another friend of yours. I expect you know Roger of
yeah,
Moonhouse
yeah, of course,
and
yep.
all the relations of Elevation partners they had together.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a rocky road for the people out there in San Francisco. And now you're all moving out here too. Right over the hill from my house here on S Street is a double mansion owned by Jeff Bezos. It was the textile museum, and they moved that. And now Bezos has it. He put 25 bathrooms in that building. He still hasn't had me over. I can't figure it out.
Right, yeah. Well, he's gone to the dark. He's gone to the dark side. So,
Right.
are you
Zuckerberg is
are
here.
you are you in are you in DC proper?
Yes, I am on S Street where Florida and Connecticut avenues come together just above DuPont Circle, if you know the
Got
city.
it. I do not know that. Isn't there a Dead related show at the Hamilton like tonight or tomorrow or Tuesday and Wednesday? Like JK is playing maybe.
Actually,
And
it's on Wednesday, and you're quite correct. It's furthermore.
furthermore, and then isn't also the guys from the infamous String Dusters doing a Dead thing on tonight or
Quite
tomorrow?
likely that they might be there tonight. I don't know. I've seen their show a couple of times, and Tubi and what was their names? I can't remember off the top of my head, but they do very nice tie-dye suits. The stand-up bass, guitar. And
Yeah,
Paul and Jerry.
Andy Falco and Chris Pandolfi are the two guys
There
from
you go.
the String Dusters that are in that band. But yeah, some friends of mine that are in DC were talking about going. So go support some live music Thanksgiving week and check that out. And
Yeah, tell your friends in DC about me because I don't think I know them.
yeah, all right. Well, it's yeah, it's my girlfriend's daughter lives there, so they're just there for Thanksgiving. So
Oh, that's
um,
nice. Yeah, there's
yeah.
a lot of good things at the Hamilton Live. It's a really great venue.
Remember Gypsy Sally's?
I do. I went to Gypsy's a lot. Actually, you know how I got to Gypsy Sally's was I was on the stairs at the Ardmore. John Adlisick was coming up. I was going down, and I asked him if he was playing DC anytime soon, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm playing over Gypsy Sally's on the first, on the second. I guess it was of
Uh-huh.
August." And we do a days between thing at the Hamilton from
Sure.
8/1 to 8/9, I guess it is.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And I had gone over there first and caught the opening act. I didn't expect an opener for Live Dead 69, you know, Tom Constantine's outfit
Uh-huh.
at that time. This is 2017. And the opener was Holly Bowling.
Mm.
Didn't expect her. I didn't know who the heck she was. Here, this girl comes out, sits down at a grand piano, and blew us away. So that is
Yeah,
out there on YouTube too.
she's amazing.
I've been helping Holly out where I
She
can.
she's a local girl, so
Exactly.
um
And she
but
was from Maine originally, apparently.
I did my slideshow at Gypsy Sally's.
Yes, did you? I didn't see it there. I saw it at the Birchmere.
Yeah, the Birchmere is a better one for sure. The
Was that
Gypsy Sally
later?
ones,
Yep.
yeah, later. Birchmere was later. Gypsy Sally was earlier. So
But Gypsy Sally's was a lovely venue, and John Cadlistick was there for the turning it down. Oh, before I let you go, you know Ron Holloway, right?
sure, of course.
Have you heard about his troubles? They're
Yeah,
running benefits for him out here. So I
yeah.
wanted to plug that a little bit. I think I might even let go of one or two of my books for the auctions, but I was told by Sonny Triple. Do you know Sonny by any chance?
I do not know.
She's a singer out here. She worked with On the Bus and some others in the past, but she's mainly involved with Psycho Killers now, which is Talking Heads tribute band.
Sure.
But she'll be doing a great Dark Side of the Moon there, and I'm sure she'll
Oh,
nail a
fun.
gig in the sky at the 8x10 for Ron Holloway coming up soon. So people who are in earshot of the East Coast can come out and support Ron Holloway. They're really doing a lot of good work. We had a Root Boy Slim revival for him at the Hamilton Live with Gert Warden Sterling and the People not too long ago, and Sonny was involved in that as well. I'm using her for a vocal coach. Try to keep my voice in trim because I think I've got a decent voice for this kind of thing.
Do you know a sound guy, Danny Schwartz, who used to work at the Hamilton? He's not there anymore, but
Not
I
there
met him
anymore.
I met him at Lock-In. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay. I
Uh,
know Danny there, but I've seen this person recently, so it may not be the same one.
yeah. All right. Anyway,
Yeah.
well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
very much for being again.
And anybody have any questions? This is your last chance besides getting the weather report from San Francisco from Pam. Thanks for filling us in. Pam got out of her garage where it's cold and maybe realized it was a little bit nicer. Thank you, Pam. And Pam, if you see me out in the real world here in the Bay Area, say hi. Um, Brenda, Voice of Wonders, he's still on, I'm not sure. Jeff Knighton, your cousin.
Yeah.
Fiona
Chef's a good
Bridges.
guitarist, by the way. He's really excellent and does a lot of streaming of his own stuff. I'm going to draw him out and get him on this show one of these days. But
Great.
Jay, again, I can't thank you enough. I'm kind of a small fish in this huge pond of the world, but I really
Oh yeah.
enjoy our connection.
Well, hopefully you guys that were listening were enjoying whatever we were talking about. And everybody enjoy the rest of your Sunday and we'll catch you soon.
All right, Jay, out here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
See you. Bye.
Bye.